Hello. In today's maths lesson, we're going to be looking at measurement, and in particular, we're going to be looking at length. So our learning objective today is going to be to measure, compare and order lengths. So to be able to do this, we'll be able to show that we can measure the length of something accurately, which means carefully. We're going to make sure we can compare lengths, and we're going to be able to compare lengths using the symbols greater than, less than, and the same as or equal to. Pause for a moment. What do you remember about units of measurement that you might have done in reception, year 1 or year 2? Have a little think for yourself and pause the video. Okay, I wonder if you've remembered some of these things we've looked at before. Centimetres, metres, millilitres, litres, and with time, seconds, minutes or hours, and with mass and weighing, grams, kilograms or ounces. So we've used rulers in school for measuring centimetres. We've used measuring jugs and cylinders when looking at capacity and looking at millilitres and litres. We've used the clock to help us to work out seconds, minutes and hours. And with weighing and cooking, we've done lots of cooking in year 2. We've looked at grams and kilograms and ounces as well. Today, as I said before, we will be looking at length, and in particular we're going to be using a tape measure, and because the ruler for this activity will probably not be long enough, so we're going to be looking at centimetres today and metres. Today our challenge is going to be measuring the length of how far a ball has rolled. Another word for this, or how far something has travelled, is distance. Now, if you listened carefully before, I would have told you what unit of measurement we'll be using today. Can you remember what it was? Pause the video if you need to have a think. We're looking at measuring the length for how far a ball has rolled, so the distance. A ruler could be too short. Yes, we could count footsteps. We could go across with our hands, but there's another way. We will measure the distance in centimetres or metres. And if you remember, 100 centimetres is equal to 1 metre. It's the same as 1 metre. I wonder if you can think of anything that you've measured in centimetres before, or maybe, or perhaps in your home, your adult you live with has had to use a tape measure perhaps to measure in centimetres or metres for a special reason. We've moved house, and in our new house we needed to measure lots of the bedrooms or the other rooms to make sure that any new furniture we bought fitted in carefully. As I said, we'll be using a tape measure today, but if you're in school for this lesson, you might be able to use a trundle wheel, which also counts metres. Every time you roll it along, it clicks every time you get another metre ahead. If we're going to measure how far a ball has rolled, it's got to be fair, it's got to be done fairly, it's got to be a fair test. So we need to make sure that our ball is going to start at a start line, and that when we measure with the tape measure, we measure from the start line to where the ball has rolled in a straight line. We've got to make sure we don't measure beyond or too little in front of the ball. We've got to measure accurately, which means carefully. For this task today, you are going to need 3 different balls. It could be any balls, and this can be done perhaps in your house if you've got room along the floor somewhere safe. It could be done in your garden. If you're in school, it could be done out on the grass by the Year 2 area or somewhere else that's a sensible, safe place to do it. So you will need 3 different types of balls. You will need a tape measure, or if you're in school, perhaps a trundle wheel. You might need some tape to make a starting line, and you will need the recording sheet, which you can print off from under this video, and a pencil. The first thing you're going to do is put ball number 1, mine is a netball, right by your tape. Then you're going to roll it along carefully. So push from with your hand behind the ball, roll it along and see where it stops. Then, using your tape measure or your trundle wheel, you can measure the distance travelled by the ball. Look closely at the tape measure and look at the number of centimetres or perhaps metres it has rolled. You can record this on your sheet, maybe using a clipboard if you're outside, or just find a book to lean on. Then you'll need a second ball. Put the second ball by the start line. You're going to roll it along, and when it gets to the end, you're going to measure how far it has travelled and record this number carefully, looking at the centimetres or metres closely. Here was my third ball, my tennis ball. I put it behind the start line. I rolled it along. It's come to an end. What do you think I'm going to do next? That's right, I'm going to measure it. Measure how far it has travelled using my tape measure. I'm going to measure carefully from the starting line all the way up to the back of my ball where it has reached. So on your recording sheet, you should have your 3 types of ball written in your table at the top of the page. I had a netball, then a sponge ball, then I had a tennis ball. On the right, next to each ball, I will write down how many centimetres or metres it has travelled. Once you've done that, you've got some questions below. The first question says which ball travelled the furthest distance, so you will look at your results and see which is the highest number. Then it says which ball travelled the shortest distance, so you'll look at your results and you will record down the answer that was the smallest number. And then I wonder, with all of your numbers, your results, if you could compare them by putting them into the table at the very bottom of the page, by using the greater and less than symbol or the equal to symbol to compare them. For example, if I had a 200 centimetres measurement and 190 centimetres measurement, I know that 200 is greater than 190. So my crocodile mouth faces the 200. If I had 150 centimetres and I had an 18 centimetres, they're very different to each other. That one, in fact, should say 180. There should be a 0 here. This one is, in fact, incorrect. The last one, if I've got 160 centimetres and I've got 1.6 metres, they are, in fact, the same, because every 100 centimetres is worth a metre.